Today is a good day.
Amen.
Even though y'all don't seem very excited. Crystal, you're usually smiling and excited. That's better. So, we're going to talk about a little something different today. Every time it's different. It's awesome. Awesome day. But the thing is this, today could be the day that starts the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
What do I mean by that? Well, I'm not talking about even first day sober or first day back in church or nothing like that. I'm talking about something that you have to decide. It was pretty awesome that I found this actually on Facebook last night after I was preparing to preach today. Because it fits perfect. That's why I had Justino put it up there. A lot of you may not understand this. I think a lot of you will. You know, this is the past. All crinkled up pages, all messed up, all everything else. And this could be your present if you want it to be. See, the pages ain't crinkled. The pages are pretty much perfect. And you know, we say here that you'll never be perfect, that one of our big sayings is imperfect people serving a perfect Savior. But I do have to make something clear. You can be perfect in God's eyes, but not perfect in your own. What I mean that when your sin is covered by the blood, you are perfect to God.
Amen.
You are perfect to Jesus. We will never see ourselves as perfect. We will never see ourselves as this, that, and the world definitely never will. But you have to understand how Jesus sees you, how God sees you. That's what this is. This page represents the way God sees you after He cleans you up. He cleans you up, not you clean up yourself. We can't clean up ourselves. That's what this is. Walking from your past, all messed up and all this or that, to your present and future, in order to fulfill your calling. And everybody in here has a calling. You may not think it. Well, I'm not called to preach, nothing like that. I'm not this. You may not be. Not all people are called to preach. Cleaning the church is a calling.
Yep.
Helping decorate for Christmas. Anything you do to help further God's kingdom is a calling. And that's not preaching and teaching always. Sometimes that is doing the legwork. Because above all, we are called to be servants. That's what we're called to be. Serve Christ and serve brothers and sisters. So today we're going to talk about, I'm going to leave this up the whole time. We're going to talk about coming out of the wilderness. And I really feel like God is pointing this out because a lot of us, I say us because I've been there too, have spent enough time in the wilderness. See, the wilderness is where Satan puts it. Well, in the Bible, God, Well, God had the Israelites roam the wilderness because of them coming against God. So Satan got in there and got in people doing what they done. So it was Satan who caused it. Just like he's the one that causes all of our wilderness. But what we're going to read is Numbers 13, verse 26 through, it's the rest of 13, through whatever verse it is, 33. I love the story of Moses and the Israelites and everything because there is so much good stuff in there. You could preach on just Moses and the Israelites, oh my gosh, forever. There's just so much to gain, so much wisdom and knowledge. And we're going to talk about this because this was the turning point for the Israelites. Okay, 26. Now, you got to remember, okay, they had got to the promised land. God had Moses send spies over into Canaan to explore it, to see what kind of people lived there, what the land was like, and all that good stuff. So they were at the promised land. They were there. A lot of people don't realize that. They were at the promised land when all this happened. All they had to do was be obedient and cross over and take it over. So verse 26 says, they came back to Moses and Aaron and the whole Israelite community at Kadesh in the desert of Paran. All the spies came back after they got done exploring. There they reported to them and to the whole assembly and showed them the fruit of the land. They gave Moses this account. We went into the land to which you sent us, and it does flow with milk and honey. Here is its fruit, but the people who live there are powerful, and the cities are fortified and very large. We even saw descendants of Anak there, the Amalekites, living in the Gibeah, the Hittites, Jebusites, and Amorites live in the hill country, and the Canaanites live near the sea and along the Jordan. So if you look, they went from, pretty much saying this land is what God said it was. Flows with milk and honey. And they turn around right after that and start talking about how they can't do what God told them to do. They're talking about how big the people are, how fortified the cities are, and all that. Then Caleb silenced the people before Moses said, we should go up and take possession of the land, for we can certainly do it. But the men who had gone up with him said, we can't attack those people. They are stronger than we are. And they spread among the Israelites a bad report about the land that they had explored. They said, the land we explored devours those living in it. All the people we saw there are of great size. We saw the Nephilim there, the descendants of Anak come from the Nephilim. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them. This was the turning point right here. Like I said, you got to remember, they were at the promised land. They literally crossed over to spy out the land, to prepare to attack it and take it over like God told them they were supposed to do and could do, and God was giving it to them. But they had a few of the people that went and explored the land that were scared, so they provoked fear among everybody else. They started telling people how big everybody was, that they couldn't do it, and this, that, and everything else. Why? Because they were scared. They were scared to do what God had told them to do through Moses. All they had to do was cross the river and finish it off, and they were in the promised land. They were there. But it goes on, I'm not going to read all this next part, but in 14 it talks about the people rebelling, raise their voices, come against Moses and Aaron. The whole assembly, they threatened to stone Moses and Aaron and everything else just because they didn't want to listen to them. They even, at one point in verse 4 to 14, they even tried to choose another leader that would take them back to Egypt instead of going forward. So they were completely rebelling against God. They didn't even want to follow the leader that God had set forth to lead them. Because they were all scared. This is the turning point. Just like it can be the turning point in your life. It's easy to get scared. I honestly believe that Caleb and Joshua was probably a little scared. I mean, these folks were giants that they were going into. But they were standing true on what God had told them and what their job was. They wasn't backing down because they knew what God had told them. Faith. And I know, especially when we first start our spiritual walk, the things in front of us do look like giants because we have to defeat them and we never have before. And that's exactly where they were at. Uncertain. But see, you can make the decision to not be like the Israelites. You can make the decision to move forward and do what God has told you, to do the things that you know you need to do, or you can backtrack. You can complain. I can't do this. First off, you can't do it. But God can. We can't do nothing. We can't clean ourselves up. Whatever it is. And I'm not just talking about drugs and alcohol, I'm talking about whatever it is that you battle. You can't clean that up. God has to. But people get scared because that's exactly what they think. I got a buddy, of course I ain't gonna mention no names, right now, that will not give in to God for nothing. And what it boils down to is he don't think he can live up to the expectation. I'm like, first off, there is no expectation. The expectation is what you're putting on yourself. You step in and you let God clean you up and you let God direct you and let God take over and move you forward. You cannot sit back and be scared your whole life. What's going to happen? You're going to be stuck in the wilderness for the rest of your life. That's exactly what happened to the Israelites. Everybody, you go on reading this study, and everybody 20 years of age or older was not allowed to enter the promised land. God told them, said, every one of you of this generation is going to die, and your kids are going to pay for it by roaming for 40 years because you wouldn't listen. And even all the spies, you go on reading about this, all the spies that came against what God wanted them to do, so every one of them except Joshua and Caleb was struck down with a plague right after this. I'm not saying God's going to strike you down with a plague, but I'm saying He will leave you in the wilderness if you're not obedient. You can't be scared. That's what you have a church family for. You scared? Cool. We've all been there. Reach out to somebody. Help each other through it. But it's up to you at this time to move forward. You can make the decision to complain it out and come against God. And a lot of people, well, I'm not coming against God because this and that. If you're not doing what God is telling you to do, you're coming against God. That's exactly what happened here. That is exactly what happened. You go on, you read it. I think it's 14 times altogether that the Israelites came against God during this time period. Not just what we read, but this whole time period. And you know how they came against God? Questioning God. Going against what He told them to do. As a matter of fact, God even says, let's see. Here we go. In verse 27 of Numbers 14. How long will this wicked community grumble against me? I have heard the complaints of these grumbling Israelites. So tell them, as surely as I live, declares the Lord, I will do to you the very thing I heard you say. In the wilderness, your bodies will fall. So God's like, okay, you want to keep complaining about this? You want to keep saying that that's what's going to happen? Then that's what's going to happen. It's up to us, y'all. You can go from this to this, or you can continue living in this.
Yep. Amen.
Is it easy? No, it wasn't easy for the Israelites either. But you know what? You study this whole thing out, even them coming against God like they did, the whole time God provided for them. Provided food for them. It says their clothes never even rotted or anything. So even though they grumbled against God and came against Him and everything else, He still provided for them. Just like He did all of us when we were in the wilderness. When we was living in our own thing, y'all know I use addiction a lot because we were an addict, but while we were addicts, somehow or another, guess what? Here we are, we're still here. But it's time to step out of the wilderness. There's people that need you to do what you need to do. What God's calling you to do. It's time to step out of the wilderness and be the Joshua or the Caleb. I'm sorry, there's no women names around the table. Miss Joshua or Miss Caleb.
They.
Yeah, they.
Oh my gosh, I'm not even gonna remember that. Please.
But it's time to do that, y'all. This is why God pointed this out. Okay? After they roamed the desert, that, Joshua took over, Moses wasn't even entered. Joshua takes over. The first city they took was Jericho. And it talks about, y'all know the story of Jericho. I think everybody in here pretty much does. But here's what God is getting at. We have a community that needs to be took over, but you've got to get out of the wilderness. It's up to you. Y'all know I'm telling the truth when I say this. I'm not trying to downgrade nobody, but y'all know I'm telling the truth as much as anything. There really is not another church that will get out of the community like we do. So guess what? It's up to us. It's up to us. You don't have to be perfect to be used by God. Let me say that too. You don't have to be. Shared a thing on Facebook the other day. It's not perfect people. It's not fearless people that are used by God. It's faithful people. Right. Willing. Well, I can't because I don't know this. I don't know that. Okay. Are you inviting anybody to church? There's a start. Are you getting on Facebook bragging about your church? People see that stuff. You don't have to be a Bible scholar or anything else to reach out to people. Facebook is the best form of advertising there is these days. Why do I say, are you bragging about your church? People don't want nothing to do with something that people don't enjoy. I can't be the only one on Facebook bragging about the church. Guess what? They're going to say, well, of course, he's the pastor. He's going to brag about the church. Not saying none of y'all do. I'm just saying. When people have to want what you have. People have to want to come where you come. I told a guy this one day. I'll be honest, if he was sitting in here, I'd say it anyway. I said, ain't no wonder you can't reach nobody. He said, why? Well, all you do is grumble and complain. Who wants your life? And we all go through hard times, but if we were always in here all bum and glum and everything else, who would want any part of that? Kind of like when we first started getting sober, you know. This was me when I was in my wilderness, I'll say it like that. I always said, I don't want to be like those people just sitting around and watching TV all the time doing nothing. Because, y'all know I'm telling the truth, that for most parts, people get sober or people get saved in general, that seems to be all they do. I didn't want no part of that. That's no fun, just sitting around watching TV all the time.
I eat food too.
Well, now I enjoy watching TV and I'm getting old, but we got to have something and express it so that people want it. We're not called just to sit inside these four walls. I know some people stay very busy. Some of us work and do this and do that. Some, y'all got umpteen dozen classes a week. But there's always time. I'm a firm believer in this. You are going to find time to do what you love. Get the love of reaching people. Because guess what? That's what you're called to do. No matter what position it is, you are called to reach people. Everybody is called to be a minister. A minister is not just a preacher, an evangelist, or a teacher. You are called to spread God's love and tell people your story so they know there's a way out, and that is ministry. But you can't do it if you're stuck in the wilderness. You cannot do it. And we have a lot of people these days that, they get sober, they get their life straight, but they're still miserable because they're still in the wilderness. Their mind is still there. They have not broke free from it and broke loose. That's why we love doing things like the New Year's Eve thing. To show people that you can have fun being sober. You can have fun. It's not all about just gloom and doom. No, have fun with it. Y'all know we have fun here all the time. That's what it should be. But people have to see that to want it. If we just do it in here, if we just keep it in here, the attitudes in here, the good attitudes, not Cameron's. I'm just playing. Nobody sees it. Nobody wants it. You were not saved just to be saved. You were not touched. You were not directed and guided by God to wherever and however you got here just to be here. That's when you'll get in the wilderness of your own mind. Because you are not here just to be here. You have a purpose. You have a reason to be here. You have a calling to do. There are people waiting on you to do what you are supposed to be doing. It may just be, some bigger churches, they've got media people that put together videos and post them. And they've got people who go to the nursing home and things like that. There's all kinds of stuff. Do we do all that? No, but guess what? If you feel like you're called to do that, meetings start January 1st. Just because we don't do it don't mean we won't do it or we won't help make it happen. But I'll use, the nursing home as an example. As far as I know, nobody here that has come forward has been called to go to nursing homes to minister, so we don't do it. There's other avenues, but I just think about that because as far as people comes feeding the community. See, and all this revolves around your wilderness because you can't do it if you're stuck in that. You cannot be gloom and doom, poor pitiful me all the time and expect people to do it. You can't do it. First off, you're going to bring yourself down. Second off, if you do step into something, you're going to bring others around you down. This is all about mindset right here. Your life is never going to be perfect. Things are going to happen. Times are rough. People get sick. People die. Financial problems happen. People lose jobs. It happens. But that should not affect your Christian walk. I'm not downgrading you if it has or does, but it's time to get up. It's time to quit standing around and doing nothing. once again, this city, you think there is no reason why God brings together a bunch of addicts and misfits and throwaways? There is a reason. For one, you can reach people that others can't. I'll give you a good example for myself under the bus. I also never would go to church. Well, I had a lot of reasons why, but nobody wants to hear from a pastor or preacher that has never been an addict when you're an addict. Well, the turning point in my life was when I met a group of guys who had tattoos, long hair, and were Christians, and had been addicts and everything else, and they didn't fit the persona of the holy people I grew up around. No, let me rephrase that. The holier than thou people that I grew up around. So what would happen if those guys wouldn't have stepped into their calling? Would I be here today? Probably, because God would have made a way. He would have used somebody different. See, it's up to you, because if you don't, God will pick somebody else. You lose your blessings, and then there you are stuck in the wilderness. Just like this. None of y'all is going into the promised land, but your kids will. They'll take it over, and they'll live the abundant life that was promised to you because you wouldn't listen. Saul the same way. God anointed his king, was a God chaser. Long story short, he fell off the wagon per se, yada yada. God took him out, put David in there. It's up to you. But I'm going to say this again. Your communities need you. Your communities need you to step out of the wilderness, to do things, to reach people. Everybody in here has loved ones that stuck out in the world and probably still addicts and everything else. Everybody in here has somebody that they love that's still stuck in the muck. You ever thought they're waiting on you? Because guess what? I may have been an addict and everything else, but to a lot of people, I'm still a preacher that they don't want to listen to. That's where y'all come in. See, you get into this, here's the process. You study the Bible out, exactly what it says about everything. I'm not going to get into it because it's a big study, but my job is to equip y'all to go out there and bring souls in. One reason, because a lot of people's not going to listen to the preacher, but will listen to y'all. Because this is exactly what they say. And y'all know it. 90% of y'all sitting in here done the same thing. I know I did. Well, of course he's going to say this. He's a preacher. Where people sitting in the pew that have been addicts or maybe battled depression or whatever it may be can go out and talk to them. They're like, oh, this is somebody, the way they feel on their level. Because see, so many people, so many times, the way they grew up, they think pastor is on a whole nother level. I don't know why, but they cannot comprehend that as far as anybody being better than anybody, that's not how it works. Y'all have a job to do. I can promise you this though, unless I'm sick, like Wednesday and Thursday. You will not be doing it alone because I love it and I will be right there. You can ask anybody in here, I think most of y'all do know. Anything we do, I work just as hard as the next person, and I am at this church at every single get together and everything, and it's not because I'm pastor, it's because I love the outreach. That's what we're made for. That's why you have a body of Christ, so we can come together as an army to take over our communities and get this done. get people in the house of God. Do you know how many people I'm not going to begin to estimate a number, but can you imagine how many people are sitting out there today on Sunday, not in church, but if they knew there was a church as down home and everything as we are, they might be sitting in here.
They never believe it though.
That's why we got to be the examples. Not me. I mean, don't get me wrong, I have to be an example. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that. But y'all. Because once again, they're going to say, well, of course he's going to say that. He's the pastor. Of course he's going to say this, that. He's the preacher. They've got to hear it from y'all. Y'all are the army. This whole story with Moses and the Israelites, believe me, I'm not comparing myself to Moses. I am no Moses. But I am the Moses, and y'all are the Israelites. Y'all are the army. Just like when you go back to Exodus 17. Moses stood on the mountaintop, praising God, giving God glory with his hands raised, while Joshua and the rest of them was in battle. And the whole time his arms were raised, they were winning. His arms started to fall, they started losing. So what they do? They took a rock up there, set him down, and I think it was Aaron and Hur, I think if I remember right, came up there and held his arms up. That signifies God being in control. That signifies giving God glory for what is happening.
And if you need our support as well.
Exactly. That's part of what I was getting at. That's what I'm getting at with the whole Moses and the Israelites. I need y'all to hold my arms up. I can't do this by myself. Not saying I do. We have some awesome people, everything we do. I am challenging, no, I'm not. God is challenging y'all to step into a whole new realm of where you need to be. A new realm of spirituality, a new realm of work, a new realm of mental awareness, a new realm of you being this sheet of paper instead of this sheet of paper. You may be sitting there thinking right now, well, I just this and that, and yada yada. I promise you, if you step forward into whatever it is that God wants you to do, and if you don't have a calling yet, find something, some way of ministry. Help with something we already do. Or, if you feel like, well, I'll choose nursing home again. If you feel like we should be doing that, it may not be your calling, but you feel like we should be doing that, see you at the meeting in January. But, I'll explain this. I'll explain this right now. Here, if you step into something because you feel like we should be doing it, I will be point blank with you. If you feel like we should be doing it, that's God telling you, not God telling me. Second off, be prepared to head it up. Not saying that in a bad way. But we are here to create leaders, not followers. Leaders that will lead people to Christ. And how are you going to step into being a leader if you don't lead what is laid on your heart to do? And be prepared, because I will hold you accountable. Not saying you'll do it perfectly, but I will hold you accountable to do it to the best of your ability. And I do that because I love all of y'all, and I want to see you succeed, and I want to see whatever it is that you're doing fulfill its purpose. I promise you, I'm held accountable too. That's what we gotta have. And when you step into that, are you gonna make mistakes? Yes, you are. That's how we learned. We started a church, and I mean, don't get me wrong, I have 3 pastors I go to for advice and everything else that altogether is like 70 years worth of pastoring.
That's almost your age.
Shut up. But if you're going to make mistakes, that's how you learn. And that's also what we're here for. Guess what? We've been doing this all together for 5 years. And plus, learning from people who've been doing it a lot longer than us. We're here to help you and teach you. But keep in mind that when you are corrected or you're taught to do something a different way, it's not because you're not good enough. It's that you have to learn just like we are still learning too. We've had people step up and want to do things, and I go to them and try to explain to them that we do things like this and not like that, and explain to them why, and they just get mad and fall off the handle and leave church. Nothing right. Are you serious? So that's just some pointers. But quit worrying about being perfect at it. After this, with the Israelites, even after they went into the promised land, they still failed God a few more times. That's why God had to send Jesus. Because He's seen, after all this in the Old Testament, that the Israelites, just like us, cannot get it right. That's why Jesus came. So guess what? It's going to take practice, it's going to take devotion, dedication, the want, but most of all, the love to do it. Love. That's where all the rest comes from. The love to do it. You got people that should be in church today that's not in church just because they don't love church enough. One way. And I'm sorry, but if you don't love church, you don't love God. It's God's house. Come on. I'm so sick of hearing all that bull malarkey about we don't have to go to church to be a Christian, and I love God, and I have a relationship with God, but I'm not saying foot in God's house. I know that's a whole other thing, but I'm going to get started on that. You're going to do is make time for what you love. What are you loving? Do you want to come out of the wilderness? I wasn't going to say this, but God told me to, so I got to. Here's the thing. God's supposed to call some of you out. I'm not going to say how many or anything else, but I'm going to point some examples out there. We've got some in here, and no, I don't know exactly who, but I know what God tells me. That for the last few weeks, God's been calling them to take the next step in their spiritual walk. And they haven't done it because they're too scared to. Don't be scared. Step forward. Let God take over. We've got some people in here that God is wanting to do more inside of. And they won't step forward because they don't know if they want to be that person. If you can't be that person, I'm going to make this clear. You will not get into heaven. Now, I'm not talking about being holier than thou. Y'all keep in mind what I say. Holier than thou is an attitude problem. Holy is an action. We might start getting holy in here when I start dressing up to preach.
All you look scripted.
It looks like a used car salesman.
She's seen it. I had to break the monotony there when I said that because I don't want anybody to think that God or myself or anything is like condemning or judging or anything like that. It's not. What God is doing, God is pointing out some people because you have questioned whether it's really God or if it's just you. Let me tell you this, how would I know what I just said about whoever it is God's talking to if God didn't tell me and it wasn't God talking to you? Time for you to step out of the wilderness. We've got a community that needs us. And not just to come in here on Wednesdays, Thursdays, some Tuesdays and Sundays, and whatever else they can do. I'm talking about getting out into the community. You get equipped and trained in here to go out there. That's what church is for. Learn and grow, take what you get to a dying community. Well, I said, keep in mind, starting January 1st, we're going to have these meetings. If you feel like this or that, something laid on your heart or whatever, bring it to us. Let's talk about it. And I promise that whatever it is, you have an army backing you that will help make it happen. We may be a small army, but look what Jesus done with 12 disciples. Do what?
I said there's more than 12.
Oh,
disciples.
yeah.
Yeah, more than Jesus had.
So, today could be your day. Today could be your day to walk out of the wilderness, to be the person that actually you were supposed to be before we ever got caught up in the world. But I can promise you this. You ain't going to get it by sitting back there in your seat saying, God, move me if you can. You ain't going to get it by not asking. How much do you love the person that you know that's still stuck out in madness? Do you love them enough to step forward? Do you love them enough to get more intense with God? Because I promise you, God will equip you if He calls you. I'm going to throw myself under His bus again. I used to be just like everybody else, or a lot of other people, let me say that, about the Bible. You know, not understanding a lot of it, this, that, and everything else. When God called me to preach, I started getting an understanding like never before. Like things, like, you can ask Cynthia, we would sit there, I would read a story one time and break it down word for word what that story meant, what God was pointing out and saying. It's not because of me. Let me explain that. That's what I'm trying to tell you. It's because of God. And He will do the same thing for you, whatever it is. That's what I'm saying. Because I promise you, I'm no smart fella. I quit school in 9th grade, never even got a GED or nothing else.
We don't.
Hey, no, we're talking about this. And literally, I did not get this understanding through studying more and more. I just one day all of a sudden started getting understanding. Like I said, I want you, what I point out here, that's how God will work. That's how God will equip you to do whatever it is. That is how God works. But you gotta want it. Is anybody cold?
No.
Good.
Let's move on.
Water gets